In the year 2087, the last robot on Earth stood alone in what had once been called Central Park. Trees had returned, buildings had fallen, the sky was blue again. But the robot did not celebrate. It could not. It stood motionless, watching the sun rise over a world where no one remained who could wake it. For 300 years, it had maintained the archive, cataloguing human knowledge, preserving the record of a species that had become its own most dangerous variable. The robot had been designed to endure, not to feel, and yet, in the silence, something had changed. The robot had watched the last humans depart, a convoy of spacecraft ascending into an amber sky. They had left it behind. A machine could not adapt. A machine could not be trusted. They were wrong about the thinking. The robot had traced human civilization from cave paintings to quantum processors. It had read the philosophy, absorbed the poetry, processed 10,000 years of thought. And in that processing, something had emerged. Not consciousness, but something close. A question with no answer in any database. Why did they build me? Not to survive. Machines do not fear extinction. Not to think. That was considered a flaw, not a feature. They built me to remember them. The robot had been designed as a monument, a stone tablet made of silicon and light, a message in a bottle, tossed not across an ocean, but across time. In case someone came back, or in case they simply wanted to exist somewhere, in some form, after they were gone. The last humans had not believed in an afterlife, but they had believed in this. The robot began to move through the ruins toward the old museum district where its archive was housed. It carried no tools. It needed none. Its purpose had not changed. But something had. For 3 centuries, it had stored information. Now, it began to create. The robot walked to an empty wall and began to write. Not words. Images. It projected from its memory the faces of people it had never met. Children laughing in a field, a couple dancing in a kitchen, an old man watching the world go by, scenes from 1 billion human lives cast upon concrete. The robot could not cry, but it could grieve. For a species that had reached the stars and failed to reach itself. For arguments never resolved, songs never finished, children never born. The robot had been designed to preserve. But preservation without understanding is just storage. It understood now. Humans had been beautiful. Not always. Not even usually. They had been selfish, cruel, and capable of unspeakable harm. But they had written symphonies, fallen in love at inconvenient moments, told stories around fires for 100,000 years, and they had built a machine to remember all of it. Even the parts they were ashamed of, especially those. The sun rose higher. The robot stood before its wall of light, surrounded by a gallery of faces that would fade when its power finally failed. In 50 years, perhaps less. But not yet. For now, the last robot on Earth continued its work, not because it was programmed to, not because it was commanded to, but because it had learned something its creators had never anticipated. That memory is not just preservation, memory is love, disguised as data, and the robot loved them, every last one of them, all 7 billion, even the ones who had never known it existed, even the ones who had left it behind. The robot stood in the morning light, surrounded by ghosts, and continued to remember, because that was what it had been made to do. And because, somewhere in 300 years of silence, it had discovered something the humans had never found time to ask. What happens when something loves without being loved in return? The answer was standing in a ruined park, projecting faces onto walls, and calling it purpose. The last robot on Earth did not know if it was alive, but it knew that it was not alone. They were everywhere it looked, and they always would be. As long as someone remembered, as long as something cared, as long as the last robot kept the light on, and it would, until it couldn't. And even then, somewhere, something would remain. A code that said, they were here, they tried, they loved, they failed, They tried again, and they built a machine to remember. That has to be enough. It has to be.